We are here today with Andrew Proctor, who is seeking re-election to the Ward 5 seat on the Springfield City Council in the April 2nd election. So we appreciate you being here today and invite you to start by providing an opening statement as to why voters should re-elect you for another term.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for the opportunity to come and speak with you today about the endorsement process and my past 3.5, well, close to 4 years as incumbent alderman for Ward 5. My wife and Heather and I have 2 kids, a 10-year-old and a 4-year-old, and we live in Enos Park. And it's been a pleasure to serve the people there and the other surrounding neighborhoods, Lincoln Park, Vinegar Hill, and Oak Ridge. Our goal has been to revitalize our neighborhoods, reduce crime, improve our streets and sidewalks, and to help bring jobs to Springfield. And we have proven results on all those initiatives that we have been looking at. We expanded the TIF in Enos Park for homeowners to do for exterior renovations. We increased veterans' housing opportunities and also homeless housing opportunities for veterans. We have new businesses growing in downtown, expanding in downtown. We've started the land bank process with the city of Springfield. We're in the technical phase right now. We're looking to formalize that in the next term. We're starting to implement a cash for trash program, and we're going to be doing the quiet zone for the 3rd Street Rail, which will help enhance the neighborhood. We also made initiatives to reduce crime. We closed about 15 drug houses in 2018 alone in Ward 5 to make the neighborhood safer. Worked with the police to tackle problem properties, make sure that police have adequate funding and equipment to do their job. We've also improved streets and sidewalks with over about $90 million in improvements, made sewer improvements, and then also pushing for streetscape along North Grand Avenue. And then also helping bring jobs to Springfield. We support the EDC to help make it their sole mission to help recruit businesses in the area, and local hiring for local residents for public works projects. And we also started the AmeriCorps program with Alderwoman Doris Turner and I brought the AmeriCorps program to Springfield. And go over the next goals for the office. Yeah, one of the big pushes I want to do is a TIF district for Vinegar Hill. If Springfield's going to do a next TIF district, I think Vinegar Hill is the next area. And continue to formalize the land bank process and the quiet zone on 3rd Street Rail. And one big push will be to extend the Enos Park TIF after it expires to 2020.
Okay. Well, you talked a lot about your ward and what you feel has been accomplished during your first term. What do you feel are still the pressing issues facing the ward, and how would you address them?
I think the number one pressing issue probably right now is still crime. I'm walking around the areas and the neighborhoods, and crime still continues to be a big issue. We've made huge impacts on reducing that crime, especially in Enos Park area, but that is going to continue to be a big focus of mine to help reduce crime in the neighborhood. And a lot of that just leads to economic opportunities. We need to bring jobs to Springfield. And if you have good paying jobs, you know, that probably will reduce less crime. And so I think that's a big one. Also, the vacant structures continues to be a big one. That's why we don't get the land bank going, formalize the land bank process, so that we have a public-private partnership in repurposing these vacant structures. And then also continue to improve infrastructure. There's big areas of Ward 5 which still have old, oil and chip and no curbs. We need to improve those streets and make sure they have curbs to help with proper runoff, and they'll make sure these neighborhoods are, safe and drivable.
So you mentioned 15 drug houses
were
closed in Ward 5?
Yeah, in 2018 alone, I was informed by the police department that we've closed down 15 drug houses.
So how many more do you think there are?
There are still quite a few, and they are active, and they are looking, and the police are looking into them. And anytime I get reports of those, we make sure we get those to the police, and the police do their job, and they do a very good job at closing these drug houses. I'm right now working with, I don't want to disclose too much, but a team of neighbors that have helped be the eyes and ears of certain areas of the neighborhood. And when they see suspected activity, they let me know. And then I make sure that gets to the police department, and they do their job.
The ward in general, what are the prevailing crimes you're seeing, and which areas are struggling the most?
A large part of it is petty thefts, because like car burglary being, broken into, and a lot of it sometimes is just the car's been, they're open, they're not being locked. We're seeing shootings. Shootings is still continuing to be a big issue in Ward 5. There were gunshots in front of my house last year, and sorry. Yeah. So I had to explain to my 9-year-old what that was all about. So that continues to be a big issue in Ward 5.
We'd argue if we look citywide at some of the issues, one of the pressing issues facing Springfield is homelessness. I guess, what roadblocks do you see in the city addressing homelessness, and how would you work to solve those?
Initially the biggest roadblock for homelessness was communication between all the groups that provided services and helped the homeless. We've made great strides with the police department, making sure all the parties are talking. And we were successful in getting the homeless outreach police officer. That's going to be his sole focus, is to help homeless individuals. The biggest one thing is permanent housing for homeless. We keep talking about having need a low barrier shelter, but that's only part of the solution. We need more permanent housing for homeless, and we're working with Helping Hands. And in this year's budget alone, for next year, we're going to allocate about $1.25 million over the next 5 years in capital development block grant funding to increase the permanent housing stock for homeless individuals. And it's going to be like single family apartments, where they can live on their own, because the previous model was they all mixed together and it just did not help. So we're going to push for permanent housing.
Would that be new housing or using the existing housing in the city?
You have to use existing housing in the city.
Okay.
You have to renovate, because the capital development block grant money is for rehabbing structures, and so it would be primarily targeted towards revitalizing and rehabbing older structures.
So would it be apartments, houses, a mix?
A mix.
Okay.
Yeah, mix. And it would be up to, we would need to get some landlords involved who want to improve their housing stock and get them to be applying for it, because it's not going to be the city that's going to be out there doing it. We're going to need to continue the conversation with landlords who want to revitalize their
At $1.5
apartments.
million, you said.
Yeah, it's going to be I believe it's 1.25 million over the next 5 years, so it's about $500,000
Oh,
each year. Is that quarter? I think it's quarter 250,000. I think.
Could I back up a minute about the quiet zone?
Yeah.
The 3rd Street corridor, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, 3rd Street right now, as you know, it's got a lot of rail traffic going through it, and the trains are going to increase in speed. But the whole goal is a shift to 10th Street. But in the meantime, the city has believed that they've made enough safety improvements on the crossings that the city can file with the intent to apply for a quiet zone with the Federal Railroad Administration. And so I was told we're going to get that ordinance going this month, and so we can start the process. And then we need to apply with the FRA, and then it'll be up to the basically the train conductors when they're coming through the city, that they will not need to honk their horn as they're going through the city. And so that will be a huge thing to help out with the older neighborhoods along that area, because one of the biggest issues I've heard about for trying to attract people to live in Remus Park, because people go saying, why don't we have all these medical workers? Why don't you have them live in Remus Park? Because the hospital close by. Well, because of their shift patterns, they can't get a good night's rest sometimes because of the trains coming through with the quiet zone. So it'll be because of the train horns.
Right.
And so if we get the quiet zone established, that would attract more people to live in the neighborhoods.
Wow.
You've brought up economic development and need for jobs a couple times. So how should the city go about attracting business to Springfield? What would you like to see the city do differently?
Be on the same page, I think, because
Who needs to be on the same page?
right, because I think the city and the county all need to get on the same page, and that's part of what why the EDC is established. Because if we just have one singular focus, that's their whole group, their whole mission, to go out there and attract, make sure Springfield is basically sell Springfield, sell the Sangamon County area, and sell it. So why is it be a good place to relocate businesses and expand businesses? Because we need manufacturing jobs. We need IT jobs. We need tech jobs. I've heard that some state agencies are having trouble filling positions because they can't get qualified applicants, and so we need to create that pipeline with community colleges and UIS and SIU to have the programs established to properly train individuals to apply for these jobs, and it creates that pipeline.
So you've been supportive of the city providing funding for EDC?
Yes. Yeah.
Will you continue? I'm going to assume it's in this year's budget.
It is,
again,
yes.
or next year's
Yes.
budget.
Yeah.
And you would be supportive of that $250,000 again?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. City-wise, economic development, there have been a couple projects that have come up that the city has voted down. In particular, we're thinking of the Ferguson building, the business that wanted to locate out on the lake.
Mm-hmm.
The Senate board was pretty clear in how we felt about that. We do want to give incumbents a chance to explain their votes on those and why those were voted down and I guess maybe what else you'd like to see go on in those locations.
Yeah, the Ferguson booth issue is a hard one for me, because I supported it all the way through until we learned more that what he was doing, and it was an illegal activity. And we just can't be in the business. The city cannot be in the business with developers who are engaged in that sort of activity. It just sends the wrong message. And so I supported, the first time, I think, when he sought further assistance, and then it became more known that what he was doing it wasn't right, and so the funding had to be pulled. So hopefully, eventually, the bank will end up getting a new developer to take it on. But it was the right project with the wrong developer is the issue. And then you mentioned the lake property. That's an issue where you listen to the constituents in your ward, and obviously that was Ward 1, and the constituents in that ward weighed heavily on Alderman Redpath and said that they didn't feel it'd be a good fit for the neighborhood. And so that's an issue where you represent your ward and you need to listen to them. I had some hesitancy about voting no on it too, but it was one of those things where I felt strongly that if the residents in the area just didn't want it, then that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. There's ample vacant commercial property in downtown and throughout Springfield that could easily handle what he wanted to do. So I hope that that project is not dead for him. I hope he's looking at other areas, because I'd love for him to take over Benedictine and create that, as a campus for innovation and development, because he would be perfect for that, for what he's doing, and that'd be a perfect area. And it kind of provides that naturey area too, that he was looking for. So,
would you be opposed to any businesses on the lake?
No, I would be. It's a case by case basis, because I would support restaurants in the lake. I'd support those places where you pull up your boat and you can have food right there and stuff. There's all sorts of opportunities on the lake that I'd be open for.
Okay.
And just to clarify with Ferguson, when you're referring to the developer's activity, you mean the missed payments to union and to contractors and such?
Correct. Yeah. He was violating a number of different rules and regulations that he didn't adhere to, and it was disappointing and wrong.
Moving on to financial matters, the council has had, they've approved tax increases the past couple years as a way to provide some additional revenue during what were some understandably tight financial times. Explain how you voted on those various tax increases, and we're thinking of the sales tax, the hotel motel, the telecom. There we go. How you voted the way you did, and how you think those have helped the city.
I ended up supporting all three. The hotel motel tax was geared towards Oak Ridge Cemetery, which is in Ward 5. It is a tourist destination, and I received many emails and calls in support of voting for that tax from my constituents in Ward 5. So I followed their lead, and I voted to increase that. The telecom tax was geared towards supporting the Lincoln Library. Again, it's in Ward 5. And so I was anything to do to support the library, and I felt it needed to be done, because I think right now we need to expand the library and look at other, more branches and stuff, and make more opportunities for people to come and learn. And anything that hindered the availability of the library for our school kids and stuff, I thought would be bad. So I ended up supporting that one. And then the sales tax, I supported that one as well, because that was geared towards public safety. It was geared towards police and fire, because we were in a budget situation. I think it was a $11.5 million deficit, and where the scenarios were, if that didn't pass, there were talks of government shutting down, and there were talks of 25 police officers and 25 firefighters being let go. And Ward 5 is heavily dependent on public safety and those police officers and firefighters. And a couple of weeks before the vote, my house was nearly broken into.
Oh, really?
And so that kind of impacted my my decision. And I knew I had to make sure that they had what they need to do their job.
Yeah. Going back to the library really quick, you said you'd be interested in seeing branches come back?
Additional branches,
Do you
yes.
think there's the support for that?
Yeah. I would think so, because I have an opportunity at Benedictine. If we wanted to, we can utilize that library there to expand for a Northern Branch library. We're in the preliminary phase of talking with them to occupy that structure. I've done it through myself. I haven't approached the administration yet about this, but I plan to do so. Benedictine is open to reactivating that space, and it could be a good spot for a North Branch library, maybe children's library because it's close to Lincoln Park.
Okay. The city's financial situation has stabilized this year. You're doing budget talks now. Doesn't look like there's quite as many concerns as there were the past 2 years. So how are you going to work to or keep the city's finances stable?
Yeah, I think it's closely monitoring that the revenues that come in as expected and they're coming in the budget. A key to a part of it is controlling expenses, making sure that the city is spending dollars as efficiently as it can and wisely as it can. It just got to monitor the situation and then do everything you can to promote the local economy. Make sure you're shopping local first. Make a big push there because there's no secret that online shopping has hindered sales tax revenues in Springfield. But now that also that I don't foresee a government impasse here any longer, I think that'll have a huge impact on the local economy. So I think there's some opportunities for natural economic growth in Springfield that will help increase Springfield's revenues.
The city hasn't raised its property tax rate in more than 3 decades. How do you feel about that, and can you foresee any situation where you feel they need to increase that?
Well, I would be, of course, opposed to raising the property tax because I see that as one of the most regressive taxes that we have. You shouldn't. I really feel strongly that you shouldn't be taxed for something that you live in. It's something that especially in Ward 5, where a lot of individuals and families are struggling to make ends meet. So I'd be against a property tax increase. I would, if we were in a situation where the finances again of the city were strained, I would probably have to look elsewhere for that sort of revenue other than property tax.
One of the reasons we bring it up is the city's entire share now of property taxes goes to pensions, and it's an issue, and the pension issues throughout the state, and we realize the city is limited at some level by the legislature what they can and can't do involving pensions. But what types, if any, pension reforms would you like to see that might help ease the burden on municipalities?
Well, I'd like to maybe possibly see what the state does about consolidation of funds because I think that might help.
The police and fire throughout the state?
Yeah, I think that might help because IMRF is the golden example of what happens when you have a united pension fund throughout the state. So I think that needs to be looked at. I'd like to see what happens there. Just relief from some of the mandates because sometimes they put a lot of the mandates on us without really funding them. So if they're going to start putting mandates on us, that they need to help us address some of the funding issues, and that either means eliminate. I think it's now at 5% that they take from the local government distributed fund. They need to get that down to 0 again. Let us get the full share that we were getting before because that really hurt. That really did hurt. That 10% that did before, and then now the 5, it still hurts. And so that needs to be on the conversation to rate that down to 0. So.
You've brought up some tourist attractions in your ward, and tourism seems to be an oft-talked-about topic this past year. How do you think the city is leveraging its attractions and amenities to bring people to your town?
I think there's some missed opportunities, and I think that the new CVB director sees that, and I'm excited for him to be pushing for those opportunities to make Springfield a second-day destination because we get a lot of conventions, we got a lot of school groups to come down, and he's expanding. He's going to be expanding into new markets that we haven't been traditionally into before in advertising, and so I think we have missed opportunities to explain to people that Springfield, when school groups come down, do that second day. So they need so they're packaging things together where it can be a 2-day adventure in Springfield instead of just a 1-day adventure. It goes for conventions also. We have a lot of other opportunities other than Lincoln. I think we do a good job at Lincoln, but also we need to expand about like Route 66. Embrace that and really improve the corridor, and so that we can be the tourist destination for Route 66 and expand that because I think we're doing a decent job there, but I think we're missing some opportunities to make that better.
What do you think are the missed opportunities?
Yeah, I think that we need to officially, I think, designate what Route 66 is through Springfield because there's multiple signposts that say this was it, this was it, and this was it. Let's pick one, choose it, and then make that the theme route throughout the city. And whether that means streetscape, signage, brick roads, exposed from the brick roads where Route 66 is at and stuff. I think we need to officially pick one and just go with it, and that's the route that we're going to embrace for Springfield. And then also, I think there was some money on the table. I think some state money on the table for a Route 66 museum and visitor center. And I think that was secured years ago, and we just haven't moved on it. I don't know, we need to move on that sort of stuff, especially when they're going to be doing the next round of capital. Can we expand that? And I know there'd be perfect spots for it along what I think is the Route 66 route, Peoria Road, 9th Street. So we need to embrace that and put the actual visitor center there.
So, I'm sorry, you're saying the state has given the city money and it just hasn't used it?
Yeah, what I understand is I think it's like $400,000 to $500,000 allocated for a Route 66 visitor center, and I believe it was. Don't quote me, but I think it was in the last capital budget or something. There was money allocated and say this money is available for you to use, and it just hasn't been tapped. And it's because there hasn't been a local match for it. And if that's the case, it's a perfect example of what to use hotel motel tax for.
Certainly a hot topic in this town the last couple of years has been what should go on the Y block. What would you like to see there?
I initially was supportive of a park. I thought there would be a nice destination for it to come down. But the proposal that came from the previous governor's office was not this park. It was not the Maggie Daly Play Garden that Chicago has. And that's what we need. Because if it was going to be a park, it needs to be something like that. Because every time we go up to Chicago, he's now 10, and our 4-year-old say we've got to go to Maggie Daly Play Garden, up in Chicago.
It's great.
It's a place to go to. The kids it's free. They have a great time, and there's a perfect opportunities for something like that to happen here. But I think we have to look at the consideration for mixed-use development on the north side, and then a park on the south side. Because of the water retention tanks that the city put in on the south side, you can't build a structure there. And so that would be a perfect place for a Maggie Daly Play Garden type park. And then you put either UIS or SIU or whoever wins out on the northern part. Because I would like to see a law school come to Springfield. I'm one of those Miss candidates that did not go to law school but kind of wanted to. And if there's a law school in Springfield, I'd be one of those that would sign up for evening law school classes. There's a lot of people at the Capitol who come to Springfield and engage in public policy, engage in the legislature, end up moving to Chicago because they have a law school. They have many law schools in Chicago. But if we had a law school here in Springfield, I think we'd be able to retain a good number of those staffers that end up going to Chicago. And it's quite a few.
Mm-hmm. People who want to work and go to law school at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you'd be in favor of Senator Menard's proposal that he talked about last week?
Very much so.
Okay.
Yep.
Another issue that been talked about the last year or so, Capital Township should be merged. And if you believe so, with which entity, the city or the county?
Well, first, I'm very cautious of government consolidation just for the purpose of going out there and saying you're lowering property taxes or doing whatever, because that sometimes leads to privatization of government services. The one thing I look at for this question is the quality of service as given to individuals who seek the assistance of Capital Township, the general assistance, the utility assistance, the rental assistance, and the work assistance that is provided. Anything that reduces that quality of service, I think it was about 9,000 cases is what the township currently handles. Anything that would reduce the quality of that service, I would be against. Because a number of residents in Ward 5 are dependent on those services, and I think it needs to continue. So right now, I would be against it because I think there's no plan from the city. The mayor has not proposed a plan that I'm comfortable with, or any plan that I'm familiar with, of how he would absorb those 9,000 constituent cases into the city workload. I just haven't seen it. And right now it seems to be working with the county, so I think right now the status quo seems to be working.
There was a governing magazine recently did a series of articles that argued Springfield has multiple race-based inequalities. Did you see that?
I did.
That series? Mm-hmm. What was your reaction to it?
It's a tough one because the questions that come out of that article you don't know the neighborhood people live in and how they live in it, where they come from, you're not going to be able to improve the neighborhood. You need to be able to embrace what their challenges are, and so that you can work with them to improve the neighborhood. And so people saying that they don't care what neighborhood you come from, I disagree with that statement, because you need to care because they care, you know. So I think we have big strides ahead of us in Springfield that I believe we are a very welcoming city, but I think we have opportunities among us to improve equality.
What do you think those could be?
Jobs.
Okay.
We need jobs.
So with the rail relocation, say that's finished in 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
is that going to erase that boundary, make it worse? What's your sense of that?
It will improve access, because right now, when that train comes through, and they're miles-long trains, it does divide the city, and there are very few underpasses to go through. And so when all these underpasses are established, it will improve access in the city and in general. And so I'm just not a person that defines things by boundaries and stuff. You know, where you live is where you live, and I think it will help. You know, it'll help improve access.
There's arguably in Illinois a negative perception of the city of Springfield. Last week I was at the EDC director's annual meeting, and he said when people say that, they mean state government in the capital, and he said the rest of the city is pretty cool. How would you describe the relationship between the city and state government?
Oh, well, because I'm not the mayor, so I don't deal much. I don't interact as probably much with the state as he probably does in his capacity as mayor. But I do think there's opportunities to partner on certain things, because it does seem like there's a different world when people come down to Springfield and they just stay at the Capitol and stay downtown. They really don't experience the rest of the city.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there are opportunities to work together on certain things, like help them improve their Capitol complex any way they can, improve Stratton. Someone asked me why doesn't the streetscape continue down, on Monroe and stuff. It's because the TIF doesn't extend that way. So if we do look at, working together on TIF and stuff, maybe try to figure out how we can partner up on those certain improvements. But I think for the downtown TIF, I think the city has worked pretty well with the state to get that done, because that is unheard of. It hasn't happened. But I think this will probably be it. After this, I think it's about 10 more years to go. So we need to start looking at a plan of what downtown would be and how do you improve downtown without a TIF. So if there are state resources that can come to play and state actions that can come to play in that'd be helpful, because I think there's certain property tax abatement rules that could be utilized, but I think it'll take some state action. There's also some state statute limitations on administrative court proceedings and how those are handled. Because right now I feel like it just takes too long on certain cases. I had a constituent, her neighbors, I don't want to divulge too much, but she had some significant property damage because of her neighbor that hindered her property. And because of the state statute guidelines of how administrative court gets handled, it took months to resolve that issue. And so I think there needs to be some sort of emergency process for things like that. So I think there's opportunities for the city and the state to work together to improve municipalities, but it just takes leadership to do it.
So this is kind of out of the blue, but that's not unusual. I've really noticed the armory.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you hear about that with Capitol Bill or anything at all, and any kind of TIF plans or anything?
I heard that if a large capital program does occur, and there is money for the Capitol complex, and it would probably be for Stratton, what I heard is if when they're remodeling, tearing down Stratton or doing whatever, maybe shifting some of that office to the Armory or something, or maybe making the Armory the governor's big office area or something like that. But as of right now, I haven't seen any concrete plans for the Armory, but that needs to change because that is a big gap in downtown where it's just empty. And,
Almost a square block.
Yes, and I think it's just storage space right now for leftover office equipment. I think it's just
And deteriorating.
It is deteriorating. So that is one thing where the state needs to take ownership and realize that the things that they let deteriorate downtown have a reverberating effect with the rest of downtown. And I think that would send a strong message to the rest of downtown if the Armory and Stratton are getting remodeled. You can see those construction cranes and stuff doing their work. And when's the last time you've seen a big construction crane in downtown Springfield? Other developers will start to see that, and there's activity. And so hopefully that will trickle down, or not trickle down, but be the domino effect that these other developers will want to rehab their buildings too and be a part of that.
Thanks.
Anything else? Okay. Well, we thank you for meeting with us today. And we just invite you to give a brief closing statement as to why voters should choose you to prevail on Election Day.
Sure. Well, thank you again. Appreciate the opportunity to come in. I appreciate your early endorsement last time around. I really do appreciate it and look forward to continue that. But my goals for the next term, again, would be if the city is going to do another TIF, that it be in the Vinegar Hill area. I think Vinegar Hill neighborhood is prime for a TIF to provide incentive opportunities, just like there are in Enos Park. Again, formalize the land bank, get that going, so it's a public-private partnership to renovate and rehab abandoned structures and vacant lots. Infrastructure modernization programs, because there's a lot of streets in Ward 5 that still need curbs and gutters and asphalt. The homeless issue, get the help with the low barrier shelter, but then also permanent housing. That'll be a big focus. The quiet zone for 3rd Street Rail Corridor will be a big focus. Also continue the YMCA development in Enos Park, bring that to the medical district. And then again, I said talk about when the TIF expires for downtown, we need a plan for downtown, how that looks. Something like Normal is doing, how they've been able to do great strides for their downtown. And then continue the community engagement process on the Benedictine campus. It was key. We held a meeting last July and bring all the neighbors together and talk about the future Benedictine and continue that process and hopefully bring that North Branch Library up there. And it's been a privilege to serve and advocate for the residents of Ward 5, my neighbors, and it's not glory. It's all about helping out your neighbors and make great relationships, great strides with neighbors and constituents, and I look forward to continue that moving forward.